Hi there, welcome back. Welcome back to the third video, and I think the last video in the restoration series of the Graetz Baroness 610. When I finished off the last time, I'd finished doing the AM alignment or alignment of the AM bands, the RF and the IF. I subsequently rechecked those alignment points. They seem to be fine. Made a few minor tweaks, but I stopped just before doing the FM stuff because I found a few differences to what I'm used to. I found that the service manual talked about 6.75 megahertz IF frequency. I have only dealt, and I've mentioned this before, probably around 70 restorations. The ones with FM all had 10.7. So this was a bit of a surprise, so much so that I thought there was a problem or a mistake in the service manual. But as some of you have mentioned, this is not so unusual. This is something that's come up in your experiences, and I always learn from them as well. And so this is the difference on this one. I just wanted to check things up a bit. So 6.75 megahertz IF frequency. The other thing is this thing's got a FM front end, which has got a sunken tube in here. The ECC85, it's a normal ECC85, but it's sticking inside there. And what you normally are told to do is to lightly couple the IF signal when you're aligning the IF, lightly couple to that. And the way to do that is I've got a little coil wound on a paper former and I put it on top. You can't do this here, but fortunately, checking the service manual, it also tells you not to do that. It actually tells you to connect the signal when you're doing the IF alignment to the stator of a particular trimmer capacitor inside the IF can. Now they talk about, I think it's C9 they talk about there. And the stator is not the screw top, it's the bottom end. And there's actually a little hole there. So they thought of everything. They've made a little hole there. It looks like there's a pad of solder. You can actually solder a contact on there if you want. I don't think I'll be doing that. I'll probably just be, as I've done here, just to experiment. I've got a pin probe, and I'll be sticking that in there, and that should do the job. So I'm going to do the IF alignment. I'll check the RF alignment. This particular one, according to the service manual, does allow you to adjust the bottom end and the top end. So you can actually flex the band length to adjust it. As I mentioned earlier, the 88 megahertz station that I received down here was showing up somewhere below 87.5. So it's off the scale. So I'll be looking at that as well. And then basically that's the job done. And I can put it back into the cabinet, which is sitting over here. And it's come out really, really nicely, really nicely. So we can do a final montage, put the whole thing together, do a test, and this baby's done. So if this sort of thing interests you, stick around and hope you enjoy it. Here we have the alignment instructions talking about FM. And the first thing they tell us is this: onto the stator. So the signal is connected to the stator of the FM Vorkreis trimmer. This would be the preamp or the initial circuit trimmer C9. Now the stator would be, and it's quite easy to find out which one the stator is. Let's look at the schematic and see what that is. So we can see, here's the FM, here's C9, and they tell us to put it on the stator. Now that means that the stator would be over here. We're feeding the IF frequency in here, which then goes through all that and will come out the top here through this transformer. This is the first coupling that we need to adjust, or one of them. And so we need to connect it to there. And the way to find out which one that is, it's quite simple. You've got the capacitor, and if you put a multimeter to the screw part, to the adjustment part, which is the rotor, you find that it's connected to ground, which is good because that means that when you do adjust it, you can actually use a screwdriver that a metal one if you wanted to. It's just connected to ground. It's not advisable, but you can do. So you connect your signal there, and then you're testing or you're adjusting it. Remember, this will be 6.75 megahertz, and you adjust it through those two coils. So you'll be adjusting 29 and 30. And then if we go down here, it goes through the ECH81, and you'll be adjusting, I believe it's these two, 208 and 209, and then you adjust 219 and 220. Now 220 is the one that you need to do the annulling on, okay? And if we go back to the instructions, they tell us that we've got 6.75 megahertz coming in. We set the dial to 100 megahertz or so, and then we adjust for a maximum value. We'll see what that is. That's instruction 1. L220, or rather L219. What is that? 220, 219, 208, 209. So basically these, you're supposed to loosen these, but I don't normally do that. So you adjust 219, 208, 209, and then you've got 220 down here, which is the nulling one, which is that instruction 2, which I'll show you in a second. You've also got 29 and 30. Now they give us instructions as to what this 1 and 2 are down here, and I translated them, and here we are. Connect a high impedance voltmeter, 0 to 10 volts. Microammeter with okay, that if you don't have a voltmeter, use a microammeter with a resistance series to measure measuring socket A and chassis. Now this is the other thing that's different on this one. This has actually got connection points on the outside of the chassis that you can use to connect your meter to. Usually you connect it to the capacitor on the discriminator coil or on the discriminator circuit, but this one actually has this point here, and it's very simple. If you look at the schematic, what they're telling us is here's A. Now A is precisely at that capacitor. The one side is ground and the other side is that capacitor. So you connect it to A. And you basically, when you're doing that, all you're doing is you measuring the voltage across that capacitor, that electrolytic, which is inside the can. And the other point is point B, which is for reading, or an instruction 2, which is the nulling one. And they've got a circuit here that shows us how to do that. Now I mentioned that these are not particularly clear, but you can see this. If you look at the back here, you've got these two sockets. That one is A, so that's connecting to the negative of that discriminator capacitor. And if you follow the signal here, the line here, it goes to your voltmeter, all right? Connected to there, which is ground. So it's just a chassis connection. And B is over here where you put a microammeter. This is, you connect that to B. You put a microammeter connecting to the junction points of 200K resistors. And these 200K resistors are between ground, that point there, and again, that capacitor point A. Now I've done that before. I built a little gadget that has these two resistors in place. I've used it before. So we'll be able to line this perfectly. So let me get going, let me get cracking and see how far we can get. The first things we need to do is to adjust that one and that one. Is that right? Yeah, it's 8, 9, 19, 20. So it's those two. Two from the top and the bottom, top and bottom. The bottom one is that second instruction that we have. And that second instruction is, this is this one here, connect a microammeter with 0 point in the middle. In other words, 0 center. According to the sketch in the wiring diagram, shield chest lead, shield chassis. So that's the normal system, except you don't have to go looking for that capacitor on the underside. You can do it from the connections on the back. It seems to be quite easy to do, so I'll get cracking. We're back to our usual routine. I've got the 6.7 megahertz signal set up here. The amplitude is again minimal, the minimum I can get. I do have a FM modulated tone on here, and the reason for that is I want to be able to hear it. I've got the signal going into the switch attenuator. I'm going to give it about 18 dB, 21 dB attenuation. I'm not sure how much I need. The reason I put the modulation on is so that I can hear it. And this goes into the stepped switch attenuator. It comes out of here and it goes to the radio. And as I mentioned, it's going into that little hole there, which is the stator of that trim cap. The negative of the signal generator is just connected to ground over here. I have the positive of the multimeter connected to that point A over there. And so our multimeter is set up on DC volts. I've got it on the 10 volt range. It's going to be measuring the voltage across that capacitor, the discriminator cap. And what we want to do is adjust 3 of these coils to get a maximum negative reading. This is in reverse polarity. We're measuring negative volts. So let's put the volume up, see if we can hear anything. Oh, I've got to switch on the signal generator. and we can hear it. Okay, seems we've got a good connection there. They tell us to give it about, I think, 4 volts. So this is on 10 volts. This is a bit low, so I'm going to give that a bit more just by reducing the attenuation that I've got on there. And I think we're good. I can put the tone off. We don't need to hear it. And now I'm going to be making the adjustments. All right, so first one is this guy over here. Getting a bit of an increase here. There's our peak. That seems to be a peak over there. I'll turn it around. Well, let me go around and do the underside. See if we get any improvement. No, other way. That was a very, very slight improvement. Now I've got to do this other top one here. This one here. That seems to be it. Really not much to it at all. The FM was receiving pretty well here anyway, so I guess we're pretty good. Now we'll set up the multimeter with that resistor divider to do the balancing. Let me set that up. Now I've got those 2 resistors set up as per that drawing. So those 2 resistors in series are from point A, which is from that capacitor to ground. And then the meter is measuring from, it's measuring to, where is it measuring to? To the center of the 2 resistors, and then to point B. So we've got ourselves, I don't have a center zero ammeter. This is on 10 microamps. So what I need to do is to make sure this goes to 0. Let's see if I can get in the back here. Wrong way. And we're there. If I turn this to negative DC and I carry on turning, it goes up the other way. So we're basically getting this to exactly 0. And our FM alignment, IF alignment is done. All right, I'm going to recheck this obviously, and we'll carry on. Now to do the RF alignment, they give us 3 frequencies. 88.5, 98, and 93. So I've preset them to my signal generator. There's 88.5. Preset 2 is 93, and preset 3 is 98. I've got this thing on minimum power. I've got a few attenuators on here. And I've also got my stepped attenuator with the L-pad. So this is a 75 ohm system. The antenna expects 300 ohms. So that converts it. I did a little project on this. I'll link it above. And that's going straight into the antenna. Now I've got this signal 88.5. And where is it? See, I've got a strong station right here. Is my signal on at all? Had it on the wrong frequency. Now it's at 88.5, and it's actually a little high. It's on 80, almost 89. So I'll go to 88.5, where I'm actually getting a station. I'm going to just leave it there, and I'm supposed to adjust these 2 coils here, which is L13 and L7. It would help if I could see it. There we go. Got it a bit closer. Let me take it a bit further down, closer to 88.5. Now it really is on 88.5. And we're done. We've adjusted the bottom end. Now we got to go to, well, this is annoying. Got to go to, I think it's 98 and adjust C16, C9. Where are they? C9 was the one we used. That's the RF section. C16 is straight below it. So we've got to go to 98, put 98 on the generator, put the volume up. This thing's receiving very well without an antenna at all. Slightly out. I'll do the same, I'll follow the signal. My guess is going to be this guy here. One is the front end. I've got to break the seal with the screwdriver as usual. Take it closer. We're closer. That's exactly on 98. That's it. It's done. Let's go back to 88.5, see if we've changed anything. Spot on. Now we've got to go to 93. Absolutely spot on. What do they tell us to adjust? This is really sort of the RF alignment, the antenna circuit. C2 is this guy here, I believe. No, it's this one here. Can I even see that? Getting no difference there. So the front end seemed to have been okay. And we've aligned it. Well, that worked out a lot easier than I expected. Let's see if we can get an idea of how good this thing is on FM.
Depois, quando encontrarem uma equipa a sério, conseguem ajustar. E o Porto parece-me que sim. Mantendo no meio na vida, porque não precisas nem de Lamborghini, nem de ficar aqui dentro na faixa do meio. E a parte difícil é um bocadinho essa, e obviamente é para ouvir mais uma grande música na FM, fica ligado. Decathlon. Não tem sua. Falas deste livro de crenças limitantes. Falo de crenças limitantes, exatamente. Olha. É aquele menino sujo de pé, com a mão elevada.
Vai, já. Fechamos com a última edição e a conversa. O rei de amarelo.
This is brilliant. This is fantastic. This thing is receiving just as good as the others. So the FM has been aligned, both the IF and the RF, and it looks like all the tasks here are complete. Let me put this back in the cabinet and we'll see what the final result looks like. Maybe give it another test.
الكل فينا كان يتمنى أو يحلم في الصغر أن يكون كذا وكذا، لكن مع توالي السنين تبددت تلك الأحلام وتلك الأماني، وحتى الناس اللي حققوا أمانيهم
create something to fix it.
Or shady worlds of illegal activity.
If you clicked on a link on the page, he could then take control of your computer.
I'm Gabriella Coleman. In my new BBC Radio 4 series, I'll reveal how hacking has changed almost every aspect of life.
This was a...
in here. So my colleague Jim is packing all the orders, getting them out to make sure that everyone gets their Christmas present. And yeah, it's a busy time for us. And obviously as a charity, it's a really important source of income for us too.
So now, maybe we'll start with books. What's on offer?
We have a huge number of books here, new ones all the time, and I'm a real book nerd. So at home, my house is...
صعيد يتجدد عبر مواعيد الأسبوع. Casa de Don Félix en la villa de Ocaña.
Leti por el Villarreal, a los que les ha tocado...
Los guarde. Pues... ¡Helio! Déjame abrazarte. ¿Tan de mañana vestido? Que me trae desvelado. Sosieguen y descanse. Pero ¿y vos? ¿Por qué habéis vuelto? ¿Lleváis oficiales a la corte de Aranjuez? Ya me diréis lo que os pasa.
جبهة تحرير إقليم تيغراي استعادة السيطرة على بلدة لاليبيلا الأثرية.
En canal Teller año 605.
Já eliminou em agosto no Play dos Campeões. É a segunda vez que o Benfica defronta equipas dos Países Baixos.
Da humanidade. No mercado você encontra o que é necessário.
Well, folks, we have the finished result. Our Baroness is ready for the ball. And this little baby came out beautifully. I know I say that all the time, but I'm a fan of my own work. Anyway, I'm really proud of this one. This had a deceptively complex job to be done, which I hadn't thought of, and that was cleaning the grill, by the way. This thing had been cleaned before, but the grill was still, a little bit grotty. And the way I had to do that, because I didn't want to put this in water, it's got a cloth at the back, which I'd have to pull off and replace. This was done with a little wooden stick and then some cotton swabs and isopropyl alcohol. But the grill is cleaned, the body is cleaned, it's been painted, and the painting worked out very, very well, as I've mentioned before. So she's ready to go back. And this one is actually traveling to the mainland, to mainland Portugal. It belongs to someone in Braga, which is in the north of Portugal. And actually, it's an area that I've been to quite often because my daughter's studying pretty close to there. Once again, I'm having this sort of anxiety, release anxiety, having finished this project. It's always the same. This thing didn't have that much else to do. We changed the rectifier from a selenium rectifier to silicon diodes. We restuffed that and restuffed the filter caps as well. Somebody asked me why I restuffed the silicon diode can instead of using one of those little boards that I built. And the reason is I wanted to really try it with this kind of can because it's a sort of a slider one, and it comes out fantastically. You don't see anything. That's why I did that. The filter caps I decided to restuff because there isn't really that much space in this radio. Underneath, it's pretty crammed. It's a baby, so you've got to be careful. You don't have much space, and that little board that I built for the filter capacitors requires quite a bit of free height, and we don't have that here. The bands were aligned. The AM came back. I can't honestly tell you why that came back. I know it did. I had those two resistors that were burning out. I won't say burnt out because it did work, but for some reason, when I replaced them, maybe it had to do with something else, some lead dress that I arranged, the full AM bands came back, and those were aligned, and the RF was aligned as well. The FM had very little wrong with it in terms of alignment of the IF. The RF, yeah, it needed a bit of a squeeze on there. And that's basically it. So once again, this one's over. This one's done. And this one's going to be used. The owner listens to a lot of shortwave on this radio while he's working at night. So this thing's going to be used quite a bit. The one thing I've got to warn you about is this radio has got this antenna. Let me take this out. This AM antenna, you've got to push something right in there because it does have a switch that when you do not break that connection, the RF antenna or the AM antenna gets a signal, I believe, from the FM dipole. So what you need to do is make sure that when you put the antenna for AM, long wire or whatever, you push it right in. So what I'm going to do, I'm not sure that the owner has one of these. I'm going to leave this here. This one is special. It's got two heights on there. I don't know if you can still buy these, but it's not a 4mm banana plug. I'm going to add this to it so that he doesn't have a problem with that. It was a problem. I tried to put the banana plug in there and it doesn't go quite far in. And I didn't want to force it with another one. So this is perfect for that. Yeah, okay, enough waffling. Once again, hope you've enjoyed that. If you have, click like, share, subscribe, and all that jazz. And if you want to support the channel directly, you can do so on Patreon. Thanks for watching. Bye for now, and especially stay safe.